Great lead. We do resist absolutely everything except the energy ball, which only hits for neutral. The opponent safe switches into the Walrus. If you thought Abomasnow had a bad matchup, this big fat Walrus has an even worse one. The opponent can throw whatever they like and it's going to do absolutely nothing. So, welcome back to the channel. Today we are entering the Spice Zone, courtesy of our good friend Ty. He's out here using Golisopod. And let me tell you, this thing can core break so many teams. Top meta threats like Walrein, Alolan Sandslash, Poliwrath. And let's not forget, my personal favourite, one of the mascots of the channel, Swampert. All of these Pokemon can only hit Golisopod for resisted. Due to the unique bug water typing, we resist ice, water and ground, and then moves are the most common in this meta. So without any further ado, let's get into the battles. And in game 1, we'll lead the pod into Lantern. This is something we do not resist. Due to our water typing, we are going to be taking super effective. From the electrics, we attempt to catch a surf. On Kyurem, we're unsuccessful. The opponent chooses to chip and dip and then enter the mirror. As we're ahead in energy, Ty, not in the best spot, however, we should be able to force a shield. The first Dragon Claw gets a shield. Can we make the second? Unfortunately, we cannot, so we have got a shield advantage. Ty now brings in Gyarados. We are going to look to completely farm this thing down. There's no point in shielding up Gyarados, as when Lantern does return, we will be taking double super effective. From the electric type attacks, we are ABA weak to electric. Ty goes straight for the crunch. The opponent commits that shield. In comes Golisopod. We're so spammy to these X's. It only takes 5 Shadow Claws, then 4 X's. It gets Lantern low. Ty, with 2 shields remaining, gonna shield up a potential Thunderbolt, and the opponent full sends it. The opponent's final Pokemon is Kingdra, and Golisopod's going to have to put in some work. We're going to spam out these X's as the first one does some reasonable chip damage, and Golisopod already at number 2. This is going to get Kingdra deep into the yellow. If the opponent attempts to farm down, we will make 1 more X's. If the opponent makes a move, I believe this is only an Octazooka. Ty tanks the move, banks the X's, pivots out into Gyarados. We farm down. Lantern is going to be able to spark us down. We've got the move locked and loaded, and that is a very impressive way to start the video. GG's and thanks for playing. I'm sure when people were looking at their graphic, they thought, what do you do against electric types? Well, there you have it. Moving on to the next battle, we lead Golisopod into Jellicent. The Shadow Claws are hitting for super effective, however, we do not get same type attack bonus. Golisopod tanked that Shadow Ball reasonably well. The opponent pivots out into a Dragon. I'm not sure what Dragon coming. It's Kingdra. We fire off the Aerial Ace and then pivot out into Gyarados. Holy smokes, these Legacy Dragon Tails tearing through Kingdra. Ty commits a shield. The opponent full sends the Outrage. Great shield from Ty. If Jellicent does return, they're not going to appreciate their crunches. The opponent chooses to show their third, which is Abomasnow, and Gyarados gonna fire off the first crunch. That draws a Protect Shield. Ty already at the second crunch. Is the opponent willing to double shield? Yes, they are. We get the defense drop. Gyarados absolutely going off in the mid-game. Ty sends out Kyurem. The opponent resets their debuff, sending out Jellicent. Ty is going to respect a potential Shadow Ball, and the opponent is not baiting. Kyurem continuing to overfarm Ty at the back-to-back Dragon Claws. It looks like he might actually completely Dragon Breath farm down the opponent. Gets scared, just settle for a surf. Mr. Opponent, what are you doing? You'd easily have made the Shadow Ball. However, this is now game over. We fire off the X-scissor. X-scissor, a pretty terrible move, but Shadow Abomasnow, not known for its bulk. That gets Abomasnow deep in the red. The opponent fires off the Weather Ball, and that, my friend, isn't going to cut it, and Ty chalks up another dub. Moving on to the next one, we see another great lead. Blaziken is using counter, and due to our bug typing, that is resisted. We can hit for super effective with the Aerial Ace. The opponent actually made a great catch, catching on Kingdra. However, we've already seen that Gyarados absolutely deletes Kingdra. The opponent doesn't even make a move. It's going to be very difficult for the opponent to send back out Blaziken, as they will not be appreciating the Aqua Tails. The opponent sends out Cradily. Due to their rock, grass typing, all the water type damage is neutral due to rock taking super effective and grass resisting water. Ty gets a shield with the first Aqua Tail, fires off Aqua Tail number 2 on the CMP Ty. He allows Gyarados to go down. We're up 2 shields and we're sitting in an absolutely prime spot. Ty sends out Kyurem. We do have to be mindful of the Stone Edge. The opponent pivots back out into Blaziken, and Blaziken is going to be met with the Dragon Claw. Ty then looks to sack the Golisopod. At this stage, I just imagine you let this go, and that's exactly what Ty does. The opponent full sends the Blast Burn. Blast Burn is neutral, but Blast Burn a really good move. We get taken out. Cradilly is absolutely screwed. We've got 2 shields. There's nothing the opponent can do, as both charge moves are really expensive. The opponent realises it's game over and concede the match. Moving on to the next one. Golisopod into Kyurem. We pivot out into the mirror, and the opponent answers with Gyarados. Gyarados isn't going to appreciate this Glacier as due to the water. Flying typing, Ice does hit for neutral. We debuff the Gyarados as Glacier. It has a 100% chance of debuffing the opponent. They did commit a shields. We've got shield advantage. Ty now sends in Golisopod. We fire off the Aerial Ace on CMP. We do lose CMP. However, this Crunch now debuff doesn't do too much damage. I imagine Aerial Ace, because it's absolutely dreadful, probably not enough to KO. It is not. So we do manage to now get some residual energy. Ty looking to pivot out into Gary. The opponent's final Pokemon is Kingdra. ABA Dragon Gyarados looking to feast. We make the Crunch. The opponent probably going to commit that final shield, which they do. Ty with 2 shields remaining, going to be shielding up an Octazooka. The opponent not even baiting though, just fishing for that debuff. We don't get debuffed. Back out comes Kyurem. This Crunch is going to land, and Crunch is going to do some solid chip damage. Holy smokes, 1 Dragon Tail gets them super low. We fire off the X-scissor. We do lose CMP, but Ty still has a shield remaining. We shield up the Dragon Claw. X-scissor again, pretty terrible. Niantic, please buff Bugs. You absolute arseholes, you did Bugs dirty, but X-scissor still enough to take that game. Moving on to the next one. Greatly Golisopod into Abomasnow. The opponent attempted to catch a move on Kingdra, but the only thing Kingdra caught is the work of this double Legacy Shadow Gyarados. Gyarados comes in, fires off the Crunch. The opponent commits a shield, wanting to flip switch, but Ty says, I think not. We correctly shield up an Outrage. We then Dragon Tail farm all the way down. We're only 1 Dragon Tail away from a Crunch. With Abomasnow does return. They're likely to dump energy, and that's exactly what the opponent does. They fire off the Weather Ball. We now re-enter into Golisopod, and we're now going to start spamming out X-scissors. X-scissor hits for super effective. The opponent commits a shield, and they've got Samurott in the back. The opponent doesn't even build up to a potential Mega Horn, so it's an easy no shield on the Hydro Cannon. We then see the pivot into Kyurem. Kyurem makes the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw not going to knock out, but is going to get Samurott super low. Again, the opponent is going straight Hydro Cannon. Kyurem shrugs that off, no problem whatsoever. We Dragon Breath farm all the way down. Back out comes Abomasnow. Ty reaches the Glacier on what looks like to be CMP. This Glacier is going to permanently debuff this Abomasnow, and it is CMP. This should be game over now. The opponent fires off the Weather Ball. That doesn't knock out. They are going to Powder Snow farm us all the way down. We've got the X's are locked and loaded, and that is going to be all she wrote. Another very impressive dub, rounding off a very nice 5-0 set. Let's go. Moving on to the next battle. Fairly neutral lead. We can hit for neutral with our Shadow Claws. We would be resisting the waterfalls. However, Ty chooses to pivot out into his Gary. The opponent stays in, fires off the Drill Peck. Ty continuing to overfarm, trying not to get his move caught. The opponent still manages to make a savage catch, catching the Crunch on Kingdra. Can Gyarados make one more Crunch? Yes, we can, as we didn't get the debuff. This isn't going to be enough to knock out. However, it does leave Kingdra super low. We did get the debuff the second time, so we come into Kyurem, Dragon Breath, farm them down, and the opponent has their own Kyurem in the back. Ty opting to go for the neutral Glaciate rather than the super effective Dragon Claw, looking to lower the attack of this Kyurem and then pivot out into Golisopod. We call the Glaciate, and the opponent does Glaciate. The opponent probably wishing they threw the Dragon Claws. That would be neutral. Ty now going to start shielding up these Drill Pecks. The charge moves are going to be resisted. However, the Shadow Claws are going to start chunking, as Empoleon not the bulkiest. We fire off the Aerial Ass. That is dreadful. We fire off the X-scissor, and that's also going to be pretty dreadful. Empoleon tanks them both. Ty can now shield this up. We will be able to Shadow Claw, farm down. The opponent putting all their faith in their Kyurem. However, Kyurem is going to be met with their back-to-back X-scissors. They still have 1 shield, but they're really going to need to start using it. They tank the first. We're at the second. This should be getting the final shield. I imagine we're going to look to snipe with Kyurem, and that's exactly what Ty does. We don't snipe Kyurem. Makes a charge move. It's going to be Dragon Breath versus Shadow Claw. Who will win? And it's a simul KO. GG's to both players. Moving on to the next one. Golisopod into Gyarados, pretty neutral. However, this is where you see just how bad a move Aerial Ace is. If you wonder why I call it Aerial Ace, that's why. We managed to land it, then we pivot out into Gyarados. Gyarados can easily tank a crunch. The opponent continuing to stay in, so Ty gonna fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is resisted, but should be enough to knock out from this range, and it is. The opponent then sends out the very degenerate Razor Leaf Ludicolo dancing away. However, this degenerate can be met by a dragon, and dragon does resist grass. The opponent's final Pokemon is Jellicent. Ty fires off the Dragon Claw. The opponent lets it go. We then look to catch on the Golisopod. We don't catch. The switch timer wasn't quite up, so Ty correctly shields up a Shadow Ball. We then fire off one more Dragon Claw. This should be forcing a shield from the opponent. The opponent does shield. Do we make the catch this time? Yes, we do. Stay in school, kids. Learn to count. Golisopod soaks that Shadow Ball. Can we farm down? No, we can't. Surf will be taking us out. Then we can rely on Kyurem, but the opponent's on Bubble Beam. That doesn't knock out, which does allow us to make this X-scissor. X-scissor is now debuffed. Ludicolo commits that shield. Kyurem now primed to sweep. Ty still has one Protect shield remaining, so we can shield up whatever they throw. They go for the resisted energy ball. All we've got to do is make back-to-back moves. Ty's almost there. This first Dragon Claw will be taking care of Ludicolo. And then the Dragon Claw will be enough to take care of Jellicent. And again, very nicely done. GG's. Nothing more satisfying than absolutely slapping up a Razor Leaf user. In the next battle, we need Golisopod into Poliwrath. Another thing, we completely wall the opponent's save switches into Jellicent. Ty looking like he's going to stay in for a while. The opponent going to fire off the Shadow Ball. We tank that fairly well. And then Ty switches out into Kyurem. Kyurem tearing through this Jellicent with the Dragon Breath. We fire off the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw won't be enough to knock out. We are going to have to tank a Shadow Ball, but Kyurem, reasonably bulky Shadow Ball, gets us into the yellow. Kyurem then farms down. If Poliwrath does return, it's going to be a really tough mod shot farm down. What does the opponent want to bring out? They actually bring out Kingdra, looking for the snipe. Kyurem makes the neutral glaciate. The opponent respects it with a shield, and then Dragon Breath farm down afterwards. We now enter Gary, and we already know Gary about to feast. Ty gonna shield up a potential outrage. The opponent goes for the Octazooka bait. Ty anticipates the switch, switches out into Golisopod, and Poliwrath gonna be met with the Aerial Ace. Holy crap. Believe it or not, that was a super effective charge move. My god, it didn't look like it. We actually draw a shield with the second Aerial Ace. I believe unless this is a dynamic punch, it won't KO. The opponent goes for the ice punch. We shrug it off. We make one more Aerial Ace. Unfortunately, we already know this isn't going to knock out, but we'll get Poliwrath into the red, and it's CMP. This is definitely game over. Ty tanks the ice punch. That doesn't KO. One more mud shot gets the job done. We come into Gary. We Dragon Breath farm all the way down. Ty now looking to play with his food. Back out comes Kingdra. We fire off the double resisted Aqua Tail. We hit no bubbles. Kingdra thinking it's got a wink on. Sadly, Mr. Opponent, you do not. This no bubbled crunch is enough to take that game. Moving on to the next one. Great lead. Unless the opponent is on Sludge Wave, they can only hit us for resisted. Well, we actually saw Ty run return, so that could also hit us for neutral. However, this opponent is not purified, so there's no chance of that. The opponent fires off the Earthquake, and Golisopod shrugs it off. We return fire with the X-scissor, and this is where you can see the lack of damage output. Despite us hitting the neutral the entire time, them hitting us for resisted. This looks like a pretty close game. We attempt to catch a move on Gary. The opponent holds their energy, then enter the mirror. We're ahead in energy. Ty goes straight for the crunch. The opponent shields it up. Do we get the defense drop? Yes, we do. The opponent now gonna dump energy. Ty calling the Aqua Tail, and the opponent does Aqua Tail. What a read. This allows us to make another crunch, but we lose CMP. Ty not gonna shield this up. Aqua Tail takes us out. We come back into Golisopod. We're gonna fire off the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace not gonna KO, but we should be able to Shadow Claw, farm down afterwards. I'm actually shocked. We managed to knock something out with an Aerial Ace. Kingdra in the back. We're already at the first Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw does draw the last shield. Tai with 2 Protect Shields, forced to shield up an Octazooka. Do we get debuff? We do not. Can we make the Dragon Claw? The opponent combos out into Swampert. This is going to be an easy shield. Farm down, leave with the Dragon Claw, and it's going to be High Kingdra, bye Kingdra. GG's, and thanks for playing. Nicely done, Tai. In the next battle, lead Golisopod into that big fat walrus known as Walrein. Golisopod out here looking more like Godpod. This is a brilliant matchup. Even if the opponent's on something spicy like Water Pulse or Blizzard, we would resist that as well. Tai fires off the X-scissor. X-scissor doesn't do too much, but at least it is neutral. The opponent full sends the Earthquake. We shrug it off. Tai now continuing to overfarm. Gonna fire off the next X-scissor. X-scissor won't knock out, but likewise the opponent isn't going to be able to knock us out with anything either. We make the next X-scissor. The opponent looks like they're just happy to completely sack it. They now come into Abomasnow. Very interesting. This is a Razor Leaf variant, so Tai just going to stay in. Look to draw a shield, then we can come into Kyurem. Kyurem, due to our dragon typing, does resist the Razor Leafs, these Dragon Breaths, really chunking. The opponent makes a Weather Ball and Tai is going to respect it. With a shield, the opponent actually sends the Energy Ball. Huh? I've got no idea why you'd do that. The opponent's final Pokemon is Slowbro. We go for the Glaciate bait. The opponent calls the bait. Tai this time, learning from the bait, going to send the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is cheaper and neutral. The opponent does shield it up. We now come into Gyarados. Gyarados can tank any one move. Psychic does a lot of neutral damage. Tai going to be able to reach the Crunch. Crunch is going to be more than enough to knock out this Slowbro. See you later, bro. Back out comes Abomasnow. They are going to be able to Razor Leaf, farm us down, but this is an easy Dragon Breath to the finish. Tai still with a shield remaining. Weather Ball is the correct play, as Dragon will take super effective from Ice. Ice does resist Ice, so that is neutral. Energy Ball just going to be resisted, as Dragon does resist and Ice takes neutral. Moving on to the next one. Great lead. The opponent clearly core broken by Golisopod as they switched out of a pretty terrible matchup and entered one that's even worse. Both Abomasnow and Walrus don't really appreciate Golisopod. Tai happy to stay in. If the opponent didn't know how bad of a matchup this is for their Walrus, they soon found out, as that Icicle Sphere did absolutely nothing. The opponent throws another and Golisopod continues to shrug these off. We fire off the X-scissor. X-scissor gets this Walrus super low. We're not going to be able to farm down, so Tai going to fire off the next X-scissor. The opponent just completely sacks their Walrus. Back out comes Abomasnow. They're not going to be able to farm down. Golisopod going into God mode, fires off the X-scissor. X-scissor draws a shield. The opponent continuing to farm down. They actually get scared. They do dump energy. Tai gonna shield this up, being a real menace. The opponent now catches the X-scissor. Onto Jellicent, nice catch from the opponent. However, we've got Gyarados. Gyarados is going to be able to land the Crunch. We fire off the Crunch on CMP. Gyarados with the higher attack stat. The opponent does commit the final shield. We don't get the debuff. Tai not going to shield. The opponent full sends the Shadow Ball, and that does a lot to the squishy Gyarados. The opponent then fires off a Surf, not wanting to get hit with another Crunch. Tai allows his Gary to go down. We can come into Kyurem now. We can shield once, and then Dragon Breath all the way down. The opponent only going to make one move, so they're unlikely to bait. The opponent actually does bait. However, I don't think they're going to make the Shadow Ball. They pivot out into Abomasnow. Abomasnow going to be met with the Glaciate. Glaciate lands for neutral damage on the CMP. This does lower their attack, so Weather Ball isn't going to do too much damage. Tai going to fire off the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw going to get Abomasnow super low. Do we see the snipe attempt with the Golisopod? We don't manage to snipe, but we do make the catch. Weather Ball gonna be enough to knock out. We come in, Dragon Breath farm down. Back out comes the Jellicent. This is only a Surf trainer. I can count. Surf doesn't do enough, and we manage to take that game. In the next battle, we see the Steel Penguin in the lead. Last time we saw this lead, Tai switched out into Gary, and that's what he does this time as well. The opponent builds up some energy and then switch out into Crawdon. Holy smokes, that's spicy. Crawdon does actually completely wall Gyarados. Well, charge move wise anyway. The opponent fired off the Night Slash, and that did a lot. They got the boost. Tai fires off the Aqua Tail. The opponent shields it up. Tai fires off Aqua Tail number 2. Although Crawdon does resist these moves, it's super glassy. We've got them deep into the red. We managed to Dragon Breath farm down without taking a boosted move. Tai now up shields. The opponent sends back out Empoleon. They can only go for Drill Pecks, and Drill Peck not going to do a lot as it doesn't get same type attack bonus. Tie fires off the Glaciate, looking to lower the attack of this Empoleon. Both of the charge moves would be resisted, so you may as well go for the debuff. The opponent now comes into Kingdra. Golisopod we've seen actually pretty good here as the Shadow Claws and X-scissors do add up and they're a lot more spammy. Tie makes X-scissor number 2 before Kingdra's even made a charge move. This gets Kingdra into the yellow. The opponent is going to need to Outrage to take us out. Tie does call that Outrage, and of course the opponent is a master baiter. However, that bait didn't get a debuff. Tie now going to allow this next charge move to go through. Again, it is an Octazooka, and Golisopod shrugs it off. We fire off the X-scissor. X-scissor should be enough to knock out, which it is. Tie then pivots back out into Kyurem. He is going to shield up the Drill Peck. The opponent going to need to make multiple charge moves here. They've still got a Protect Shield. Tie going to lower the attack of the Empoleon. The opponent really forced to shield this, even though they don't want to. The win con for the opponent is going to be farming down. They don't get there, and that is all she wrote. Moving on to the next one. Golisopod into Jellicent. The Shadow Claws are super effective. Tie going for the X-scissor. X-scissor is resisted. Aerial Ace would at least be neutral. The opponent didn't shield it up, and that did absolutely nothing. Tie not going to shield up the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball does quite a lot of damage. Tie continuing to overfarm. This time going for the neutral Aerial Ace, aka Aerial Ass. This actually does some alright chip damage. Tie makes another X-scissor. Is the opponent counting? If they are, they know they will survive. However, the opponent does shield. Tie then pivots out to catch the charge move on Kyurem. Shadow Ball does half of our HP. The opponent now sends out Talonflame. Very interesting. Tie makes the Glaciate. Glaciate going to be hitting for neutral. The opponent shields it up and it's CMP. This Flame Charge, even debuffed, still going to be enough to knock out. Tie now has the perfect response in his Gary. As we've still got 2 shields, the opponent not even baiting a Brave Bird. They're going straight Flame Charge. Tie needs to start using these shields. Tie over farms, fires off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail going to be enough to knock out Talonflame. They still have that low health Jellicent and a Walrein. Tie's got to be mindful of the catch. The opponent doesn't catch, so this Crunch will be landing. Crunch does a lot of chip damage, then pivot out into Golisopod. The opponent comes in to Jellicent. That gets farmed down. This Walrein is now in big trouble. X-scissor doesn't do too much. The opponent going to try and farm down. They actually don't. They fire off a charge move. Tie just going to save his shield. Icicle Sphere takes us out. We can now just come in, shield once, or not. Tie actually tanks it. We do survive. We make the Aqua Tail, and we manage to save a shield for next season. Tie, that gave me anxiety, buddy. Oh, in the next battle we see a Lapras, pretty good lead. The opponent is going to have to throw a Skull Bash or a Legacy Dragon Pulse to hit us for neutral. Most likely they're on Surf and Bash. We fire off the neutral X-scissor. This isn't enough for a Skull Bash, so let's see what they're going to throw. The opponent goes for an Ice Beam. Not the Play Trainer. They then send out Tentacruel, which reminds me of Squidward. Shout out SpongeBob SquarePants. I used to watch that when I babysat my baby niece. However, I think I'm getting sidetracked. We answer this Tentacruel save switch with our double Legacy Gary. Acid Spray, going to be lowering our defense. These poison jabs now tearing us apart. The opponent makes the second as Tie did overfarm. This Acid Spray gets us low. Tie going for a very risky bait. Does this bait pay off? Yes, it does. Can we make the Crunch? It looks like Tie not going to risk it. Just going to settle for an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail not going to knock out. So we have lost switch, but we did manage to gain shield advantage. The opponent saves their Tentacruel, pivot back out into Lapras, and Lapras going to be met with a Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw doesn't do too much as this Lapras is super thick. Tie then makes a savage catch, catching the Surf onto Golisopod. Can we now farm down? No, we can't. Is Tie going to shield this up? It looks like he is going to shield. We're then going to Shadow Claw farm down afterwards. The opponent sends back out Tentacruel, hoping we blind throw. We didn't blind throw the first time, however we do throw an X-scissor at the Gyarados. That doesn't do a lot. However, let's be real, this Aerial Ace also not going to do a lot. The opponent still has a shield. It looks like they're hanging on to it. This is going to be a really close game. It's in the 1-to-1 shield. Tie, hoping not to get baited. Going to shield this up. The opponent does master bait. This is going to be close. Can we get to the back-to-back claws? We're at the back-to-back claws. Is the opponent at a move is the question. I've got no idea who wins CMP. It looks like Kyurem wins CMP. and we managed to take an incredibly close game. Wow, let's go. Very nicely done there in the end game. Moving on to the next battle, we see another Crawdon. Whoa. Very interesting pick. To be honest, if I didn't only use shadows, Crawdon's exactly the sort of Pokemon I'd love to use. It's really spicy, but it does hit really hard. It's like an honorary shadow. The opponent safe switches into my Milotic. It looks like Ty gonna be losing switch here. Or maybe not, as we are going to be able to tank that Surf. Ty makes the Dragon Claw. I think this could possibly knock out. Does Kyurem actually beat Milotic? Apparently we do. Beautifully done. I've got no idea how something using Dragon Tail manages to lose switch, but we're absolutely going to take that. We now managed to realign our Pokemon. Ty learnt the last time we don't want to tank a move from this really attack-weighted Crawdon, as the last Night Slash did like 60%. The opponent's final Pokemon is Empoleon. Ty fires off the Crunch. The opponent shields. Ty looking to make Crunch number 2. Ty actually not shielding this time. Drill Peck doesn't quite knock out. We're at the next Crunch. Is the opponent going to invest that final Protect Shield? Yes, they are, and it's now Golisopod time. Crawdon does resist the Shadow Claws, however, due to their Dark typing, X's are going to be returning them to their Pokeball. Ty, still with 1 shield remaining, going to overfarm, fire off the Aerial Ace. I think X's is probably the way to go against Empoleon, as we do get same type attack bonus. And it is a cheaper charge move, so that would be probably the most energy efficient way to deal with this Penguin. Back out comes the Crawdon, and high Crawdon by Crawdon. X-scissor does return them to their Pokeball, and Golisopod manages the Shadow Claw farm down. In the next battle, we see yet another Jellyfish. Holy crap, how many Jellyfish have we seen in this video? Ty gonna fire off the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace doesn't do a lot. It's all about the Shadow Claw, fast move pressure in this matchup. Shadow Ball gonna do around 50%. Ty this time actually shields a Shadow Ball. That's the first time we've seen Ty shield in this matchup with them fire off the Aerial Ace on the CMP. Ty, this won't knock out. The opponent knows it as well. They don't shield, but also we can then tank this. If the opponent doesn't pivot, we'll be able to farm down afterwards. Let's see if the opponent does switch out. They do not, so we do manage to take the lead. We leave with residual energy, and the opponent sends out Abomasnow. Abomasnow not going to appreciate these X-scissors. The first one draws a shield. We're already at the second one. Let's see how much this does. Come on, it's only an X-scissor. The opponent does let it go. I don't know why everyone's been shielding that, as they don't really do too much damage. Ty now sends out Kyurem. We can easily tank a neutral Weather Ball. That doesn't do too much. The opponent pivots out into Blaziken, and Blaziken is met with Gyarados. The opponent going to fire off a charge move. Ty is going to respect it. The opponent goes for the Blaze Kick bait. Ty now farming up towards the back-to-back Aqua Tails. The opponent probably forced to shield. They need to shield something. The opponent just lets it go. They're saving that shield for Abomasnow. Ty now farming up to the back-to-back once again. Abomasnow now definitely has to shield. The opponent shields the first. Ty at the second. Even resisted. This is going to be enough to take that game. Moving on, we see Kingdra in the lead. Golisopod alright in this matchup, however Ty pivots into his Gary. The opponent is staying in. Interesting, they might be weak to Gary in the back. Ty goes for the double resisted Aqua Tail bait. The opponent shields the bait. It looks like it was a CMP. Ty gonna call the bait, and the opponent full sends the outrage, returning us to our Pokeball. We now come back into our Golisopod. Ty can overfarm. Fire off the X-scissor. X's are going to be securing the knockout. As the opponent didn't switch out, we went to Dragon Tail Gary, our second dragon type. An actual dragon, unlike the fake Gary, might be pretty good in the end game. The opponent comes into Polito, which is a dreadful matchup. They fire off the Weather Ball. It looks like Ty looked to switch. He didn't get the switch. Niantic, fix your fucking game. We finally switch out, and it's a simul swap. It's Kyurem versus Jellicent. We've got 2 Protect Shields. The opponent savagely goes for the Bubble Beam. You hate to see it. Ty says, you want to debuff me? Fuck you, I'll debuff you back. We fire off the Glaciate. The opponent does call it, but that does lower their attack. Ty now fires off the Dragon Claw. Getting this Jellicent into the red. If I was Ty, just save my shield. He is going to shield a potential Shadow Ball, and the opponent again goes for the Bubble Beam. What an absolute savage. This one must be the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball doesn't take us out. We combo into Golisopod. The opponent also switches back out, and Politoed is going to be met with the X's. The opponent commits that final shield, even if they're on Blizzard. Probably not going to knock out. It doesn't get the same type attack bonus. We fire off one more X-scissor. Ty Continuing to overfarm, fires off another X-scissor Polysode, farming up to about 1 bazillion energy. Finally the opponent throws. What are they going to throw? The opponent full sends the Blizzard. It does knock out, however, we manage to Dragon Breath, farm down, back out comes Jellicent, and for all the stupid bubble beams they throw, Ty sends the Glacier, and we manage to win that game. Let's go. Huge shout out to one of the channel's biggest supporters, my good friend Ty. He's always providing the most entertaining battles and always repping some brilliant spice. We saw that Golisopod was really good in this meta despite no one using it. He's shown that it had some really good play. I'd like to thank everyone actually for the support as we're almost at 5k. I'm hugely grateful. If you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing. If you'd like your battles featured on the channel, a link to my battle submission form is down below. I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.